At noon today, police and fire protection slashed to the city of Grand Rapids, cutting 125 jobs, most of them coming from the ranks of the men and women on the front lines. We broke this news this morning on WoodTV.com, and 24-hour News 8's Joe LaFergie has been working the story for weeks now. He's live with what's happening now. Joe?
Brett, a huge news day here at City Hall. Attacks of budget cuts, of job slash, and of tax increases. More on that in a moment. City Manager Greg Sundstrom telling me earlier today and telling city commissioners this morning that the projected budget deficits over the next few years is forcing some major changes in the way the city does business. Layoffs, part of that effort. The fire and police departments already hit by staff reductions, hard hit by staff reductions, will be hit once again. Here are some of the numbers. 44 from the police department, 28 from the fire department. That includes the closing of 2 fire companies, not fire stations, but fire companies with more than 2 units running out of it. 48 people from the Grand Rapids Employees Independent Union. That's the city's largest bargaining unit. Also on the cutting block, all those cuts happening by the end of this year. Residents may have to pay more in income tax and for the street light in front of their home, but for residents, that could all be the small change in all of this. Grand Rapids Mayor George Hartwell mentioning the T word, taxes, despite the anti-tax movement, despite the economy right now. The mayor talking about putting a tax increase on the ballot. Again, that would need voter approval. The mayor is not saying when the vote would happen or how much the city should ask for.
Is there an optimal time the way the economy is right now?
No, of course not. It's a terrible time to ask people to pay more taxes, but it's also a terrible time in which for city services to go down. We need good policing. We need fire protection. We need the kind of quality of life services that parks provide for people, and then we need to fund all of those functions of city government, dozens of them that are mandated by law or by charter in the city of Grand Rapids.
And Grand Rapids residents may not be alone in that tax question. I also talked to the mayor of Kentwood in the last couple of days. He has that tax question on his mind as well. What do you blame for all of this? Well, of course, there's the economy. A lot of people aren't working nowadays. Tax revenues are way down. But a lot of people inside City Hall also blaming Lansing, the revenue sharing, that state guaranteed money that goes back to communities where their guarantees did not charge you for certain items, for certain taxes. That has been cut severely over the last couple of years. A lot of blame, not only here at City Hall, but throughout communities in West Michigan, blaming legislators for essentially not being able to get programs together that can take care of the taxing problem in the state and give them back some of that revenue sharing as well. Now, if you want to take a look at the cuts, more specifically what will be cut, what that means to you, we have it all outlined on our website at woodtv.com, and we will have reports starting at 5 as well right here on air. Back to you.
That blame game going on up the ladder. Let's go straight to Lansing now with Rick Alvin, who's been talking to legislators there. Rick?
Joe LaFergie has been all over this story since we first started hearing about those potential cuts. And when he talks about blame going up the ladder to places like Lansing, the city of Grand Rapids is unique that they have 2 representatives. Both have served on the city commission. They know all too well about the pressures on the city, but they also know about the pressures in Lansing. Representative Roy Smith, this is your first year here. You've been talking about this budget and some of the problems that could come back to the cities. Now we're seeing it in Grand Rapids. Is there a solution that can come from Lansing?
I think the solution is it's not going to be in the form of money at this time because, as you know, our deficit is over $2 billion in running high. But what we can do, and we've already had an initial meeting with the city, is to provide more opportunities through legislation to help lessen their cost. And that's what we're working on. We actually have 3 or 4 proposals. We passed one recently that's going to save them about $250,000 a year. And our solution is working closely with them as we did last week and come up with some specific ideas, which I'm going to take here and try to pass along with my colleague, Representative Dean, to help alleviate the problem.
You served on the commission for a number of years. When the mayor starts talking about the potential of putting some sort of a tax in the front of the people of Grand Rapids, you know what the economy is like there. First of all, is it a good idea, and does it have any chance of passing?
Well, first of all, we've seen this perfect storm hit. We've seen millions, let's say $60 million. It's time we have to think about it, and I think the mayor's making a good suggestion that, you know what, when we come down these staggering numbers, staggering deficits, and looking at police and fire, really our public safety is going to be jeopardized. So yes, I definitely think the mayor's on the right track. We have to look at everything, but we definitely have to look at something to improve our finances, or our city is not going to be the beautiful city it is right now.
Representative Roy Schmidt, thank you very much. Representative Robert Dean is also former city commissioner. You have served. You know what the pressures are against the city. You also know what the pressures are in Lansing with these cuts coming to police and fire. What is the solution?
The solution is the redefinition of government, redefining government, what's government's role. And I think when you look at the big picture, government is in areas now that are private sector things. And so I think we have to redefine government.
Representative, when you talk about those kind of reforms, those take time. The immediate need for places like Grand Rapids are right now.
Yes.
Is there any short-term solution?
Obviously, it's in revenue, so that you don't have the massive cuts, the draconian cuts that's going to impact the safety of our neighborhoods, the safety of our cities.
These two representatives, obviously, are representing Grand Rapids. But all over the state, there are hundreds, perhaps thousands of people here who are looking for money for another cause. That's for education. Over 300 from Kent County alone. Because it's not just police and fire, but almost $300 in per pupil cuts that are going to be taken away from schools, K through 12 schools, in the middle of a school year. And so today in Lansing, it's not just police and fire that legislators are being asked about, but they're also being asked to restore money for schools. So where does this all end? Later today, we'll talk with some other representatives and members of the Senate, talk about the prospects for getting something done this year, which seems slim, and what happens next year after another revenue estimating conference. In Lansing, there are a lot of questions, plenty of pressure, and right now, not very much cash. Live in Lansing, I'm Rick Albin, 24 Hour News 8.